down in Mass, but we're about to.
What do you think, guys? Are you ready to start?
My wife is from New Hampshire. Trying to move back up here, but it's terrible trying to find. Takes a long time.
Denise is ready?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think, Denise? Are you ready? Okay, so.
Yeah, we're happy to be here. We've been waiting for a while. Found a good house.
All right, it's the hour is upon us. Certainly appreciate all of you showing up this morning. In one of the coldest places on earth, we find out today. So pretty hardy of all of you to be here. So thank you very much for joining us to conduct this important business for the town, and welcome. And if everything goes smoothly, we should have it all wrapped up before the dump closes this afternoon. So
Transfer station.
thank you. All right, we're going to call this official ballot referendum meeting, deliberative session to order on February 4th, 2023. I'd like you to join me, if you would, please, in opening for a pledge of allegiance to the flag. So if you would stand if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. I see mostly familiar faces out here, so you know what we're going to accomplish today, but keep in mind the restrooms are right through that door. The exits are clearly marked. I'm the moderator, Don Quigley. My assistant moderator, Karen Long, is not here today due to illness. Board of Select Persons are here with us. Scott Bugby, who is the chair, is not here because of illness. We have Katrin Casper and Rebecca Hawthorne will be our governing body today. The town administrator, Andy Robertson, and our assistant town administrator, Denise Duval, on this side. On this side, we have our town clerk, Linda Reinhold, and our assistant town clerk, Liz Stone, here on this side. Linda's going to be recording the minutes of the meeting today. If we have to submit things in writing, we'll submit them to Linda for officially transcribing them into the minutes. The purpose of this meeting is to explain, discuss, and debate each of the presented warrant articles put forth here by town officials or by petition of town voters. These articles may be amended or passed as written and move forward to the official ballot, which will be decided by the voters in the second session at the polling place on Tuesday, March 14th. That will be our second session. Each member of the deliberative body who wishes to speak or amend a vote on these articles should be previously registered to vote, a registered voter of the town, and should have checked in with the supervisors of the checklist. If you have not checked in and received a voter card, you should do so now if you choose to speak or vote. The moderator will recognize others to speak if there's a general consensus that they're contributing important information to the understanding of the article, such as town department heads, etc., and committee chairs. As moderator, I don't strictly conform to Robert's Rules of Order, rather will guide a civil and orderly debate toward the productive rendering of these articles until such time as I'm properly overruled by a majority of the voting body by appeal. I do reserve the right to rule any person out of order. Any person presenting an article or wishing to speak to amend an article is required to come to the microphone if able, state clearly their name and address, and wait to be recognized by the moderator. If recognized, they may speak to the article. A question of order may be voiced by rising in place or by going to the microphone. All remarks from recognized persons are to be directed to the moderator. The moderator will then direct any questions to the town officials or department heads for more information. The warrant articles will be presented by members of the select board or committee chair. Presenter will be recognized as the first to speak on the article. The floor will then be open for consideration by the body. Motions to amend the article can be made by registered voters. If seconded, the amendment can be discussed and voted. However, we're limited by RSA 40-13 that no article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. This restricts amendments to word changes that help clarify the article or change the dollar amounts. When discussion is finished, the question is called by the body. The moderator will put the question forward for a vote by asking for a show of voter cards. This is for an amendment. If the vote is closed, the moderator will call for a count. After the article is passed, the motion will be made to restrict reconsideration of the article. This is something we do as a standard after each article. If there are no questions on how we're going to proceed today, then we'll start with some introductions of the slideshow. The first couple slides we have, I believe, are introductory. And so this is just some information you can have on amending a warrant article. It says here, warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. Warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. Warrant articles as amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote. No warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article, but the legislative body can make other changes. Next slide. Appropriations. An appropriation is the amount of money authorized to be expended for a specific purpose. The amount of an appropriation may be amended, however, the purpose of the appropriation cannot be changed. No new purposes can be introduced that were not in the posted warrant or that were not disclosed or discussed at the budget hearing. Next slide. Purpose means a goal or aim to be accomplished through the expenditure of public funds. A line on the budget form posted with the warrant or the form submitted to the Department of Revenue Administration or an appropriation contained in a special warrant article shall be considered a single purpose. To raise and appropriate. To raise indicates the source of revenue. This means from any source of revenue, not just general taxation. Appropriate, to authorize the expenditure of a particular sum for a particular purpose, i.e. the authorization to expend municipal funds for a specific purpose, specified purpose. All right, so we'll begin with the warrant articles. Warrant Article 1 will not be debated and discussed because that's put forward for deliberation at our second session. And that warrant Article 1 includes a select person position, the election of town officers for the next year. So we'll move to Article 2. Article 2 is a zoning ordinance. And we don't debate or discuss the zoning ordinance articles because they've already had a public hearing on the planning board. And so those articles will not be debated or discussed today. So we'll move then forward to Article 3, which is our budget article. And I'm going to ask Rebecca Hawthorne to introduce Article 3.
Warrant article.
Why don't you come on over here?
All right, warrant Article 3, the operating budget. Shall the town of Lee raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth in the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein totaling $5,138,406. Should this article be defeated, the default budget should be $4,822,097, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Select Board or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10 and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required.
All right. may discuss the article. You're first to speak.
Oh, okay. So we do have a slide here showing the main changes. You'll see that we did try to decrease in anything that we could. Let's see. Main increases are to our highway department. We have some new paving, and to our employees with a 4% COLA and a 2% step increase for employees that are not the fire department who are on their own step plan. The select board thought this was important as salaries have not always kept pace with the changing economy to make sure we are recognizing the hard work of the many employees that are employed here at Lee. We also incurred, of course, increased costs to insurance, heat, electricity, none of which, unfortunately, we can control. We're looking at an overall increase of 4.97%. We also have the Parks and Rec budget did not include funding for ORYA. This was the same as previously, though we did add a small, hopefully, it will go through, line item for helping the children of Lee who may not otherwise be able to afford the expenses of ORYA. So I don't know. ORYA tends to charge residents based on how much the town contributes. So as we don't contribute as much as perhaps Madbury, our fees are higher for the children. So instead of giving them the money they asked, we create a line item so that if children in need cannot afford the increased fees, we can help them with that. The Heritage and Agricultural Commission budgets were not funded as per their request. We did see some increased revenue as well. Okay, here's our fiscal year 16 to 24 kind of chart of what has happened. We are seeing a steady increase as the cost of things are increasing and as we fix some of the wages that were previously underpaid. We also see our revenue here from other things other than just taxes. I cannot read. Then we also have our tax rate breakdown. You'll see that our municipal part is actually a very small slice of the pie. We also have the state education, the county, and our local education that is going into your taxes. Okay, we also have the fund balances. We have quite a number of funds here in the hope to save for things that we're going to need for the future that our trustees of trust funds manage for us and have been doing their best with the interest rates to make sure those grow as fast as they can. Questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Article 3 is open for debate and discussion. Yes, sir. Yeah, we're going to, just a minute, Paul, so please.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Rebecca mentioned and showed the chart for the revenues, and this year has been an exceptional year for state revenue to municipalities. We received more meals and rooms tax by an increase of a little over $70,000 than the town has ever received. We received some money back to help offset retirement costs from the state, and we also received some unexpected highway and bridge money, over $80,000 that we weren't anticipating. So although those revenues can't be used to offset the budget, they can be used at tax time. So the town is in a better place than we imagined we would be at this time.
Thank you, Andy. Any debate or discussion? Article 3. Please state your name and address.
Paul Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane, and it's been a rough fall. I do apologize for asking this question because I should know by now, but if I heard correctly, ORYA part of the budget was zeroed out, essentially. Okay, can someone from the Recreation Commission or the board speak to what that amount was But what did ORYA submit, and what did we take out of the budget?
All right, it's a question to the Oyster River Youth Association line item. Andy Robertson?
Yes, the original, let me get this right, ORYA request was for $32,000, and it was a little less than that, I believe, last year. One of the things that the board did do this year was set aside either $2,000 or $2,500 to assist Lee children who might have difficulty paying the Oyster River Athletic Association fees. And ORYA also has a financial aid program internally in their organization as well.
I guess I'm a purist at heart, and I have a long history with both ORYA through our sons who participated, and also some work I did with them a long time ago. And I'm a supporter of a program that supports all three towns. And to basically move in the direction that we're moving in is not acceptable to me. So I think I would like to attempt to amend this warrant article to put some money back in there directly to support ORYA and see if we can get that to fly on this occasion, and let the town decide whether they want to do that. So I'm looking at the recreation budget, and if I put my, I guess I can put my glasses on. And the last fiscal year was $31,408, and the submission for this year is $10,700. Can someone from the Rec Commission speak as to whether any of that money that, of the $31,000 was targeted to ORYA?
Do we have a representative from the Recreation Department here?
Yeah, the question is, in last fiscal year's budget, was there money in there for ORYA?
No. I want to just clarify something. The Rec Commission is
Please
only...
state your name
Karen
and address,
Rossi,
please.
town employee, town resident, Rec Commission member. The Rec Commission is only in charge of programming. So I just want to make sure that's known. But there is no money last year for ORYA.
So I understand that you're saying, Karen, that the Rec Commission can't make an appropriation to ORYA.
The Rec Commission doesn't do anything other than programming. So we're not in charge of funding or not funding ORYA. Sorry, I need to speak to you. That's the select board's choice. 100% select board's choice.
Okay.
So I would disallow an amendment to the Recreation Commission for that line item.
You would disallow or?
An amendment to add appropriation to the Rec Commission
It's
for
in that line
ORYA.
item. It's in that line item is in the Recreation Commission department, but the select board is in charge of the money, not the rec. Sorry. So he's correct.
Okay, so we have another comment here, so just a minute, Paul. If we can get clarification from Select Person Casper.
Just some things to be aware of as we're discussing this. It's not that we don't help ORYA in any way. We actually provide the fields. We share a lot of the work and maintaining. But one of the things that we discussed, as we discussed this at great length at the Select Board, is that there are many ways kids have activities, and it seems unfair to only sponsor one. So is it only okay to sponsor if a kid plays a team sport, but what if they dance? What if they go to 4-H? What if they go to all these other things? It seemed unfair to pick one thing that we support and not others. That's why the scholarship allows a child to have more options. We also noticed in looking at the budget of, We also noticed in looking at the budget that there is a huge room for more fundraising opportunities within ORYA, and we have asked them to increase that, and that is not something that seems to be a big concern. And so when taking into consideration, we feel strongly that there are other ways that they can be funding these programs, and so we are supporting in the way we want. We feel that we can help and assist, and then we're offering assistance to the children. to be part of it, just so that we clarify what we've discussed.
Okay, so I may have misspoke when I said would disallow an amendment to that line item.
Maybe I didn't hear you correct. Well, wherever it wants to go, I would like to amend the budget to add $21,000. And I realize from experience that you can't earmark that, but I will do it verbally, to add $21,000 to the budget with the idea that that money would be allocated to ORYA to support its programs, which I support myself. So do you need for me to put that in writing?
I do need that in writing, and I also need a second before we can discuss the amendment further. Is there support for the motion to amend? Okay, so please come to the microphone. Let us know who you are.
Chris Regan, 19 Earl Drive, and I would second the motion.
So the motion has been made and seconded and now being submitted to the town clerk in writing. Are there any other comments on Article 3 or debate on Article 3 as we're moving toward this amendment? Please, your name and address again.
Chris Regan, 19 Earl Drive. Just wondering what you anticipate the impact of the loss, because last year there was a larger amount. There was not on that line item?
So there's no money to ORYA last year from our budget.
Okay, I thought I saw in the printout that there was. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Andy, can I get clarification on whether this, adding to this line item makes sense to our budget? What are you thinking about that?
I can give you a little bit of
Please, I don't have that in front of me.
As the moderator mentioned, there was no money included in last year's budget for ORYA. Previously, at least for 3 years prior, $15,000 a year had been set aside for ORYA. And there is a specific line item for this under Parks and Recreation, as Mrs. Rossi mentioned, and I can find that line for you if you need it. Here, so I can find it. I know it's here. Last page. Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, and that is budget line item 014520100001, and that's Parks. It's the first Parks and Recreation line, and historically it's been just labeled Oyster River Youth Association.
Thank you. Could you please talk to them? So Katrin's got some more information on this possible amendment.
The other thing to know is that Durham
Loudly, please.
also does not add money, only Madbury does. So Lee and Durham don't.
Can I ask a question regarding this?
Certainly, Dave. Please, name and address.
So David Cedarholm, Fox Garrison Road. So if we do, if this does get approved, it becomes an operational budget increase. Is that right? And so then the select board would decide whether they they wouldn't have to spend it on ORYA, right? They could spend it really on anything, basically just increasing the operational budget by this amount. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, so it could go towards demolition of a building even.
We wouldn't do that if everyone voted for it.
Okay. We need to have a clear statement of the amendment at this time.
It's Paul Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. It's probably still below zero outside, so it's nice and warm in here. Okay, I guess I read this whole.
Please read what you have written and submitted to the town clerk.
Okay, shall the town of Lee raise and appropriate? I would like to amend the warrant, this warrant Article 3 to read as follows. Shall the town of Lee raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote to read for the purposes set forth therein totaling $5,159,406. Should this warrant article be defeated, the default budget shall be $4,822,097, which is the same as last year, where certain adjustments required by previous action of the select board or bylaw, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10 and 16 to take up the issue to be revised and of a revised operating budget only. Select board, can't read that part. Majority vote required. And again, the addition would be with the idea to support ORYA directly.
Could you clearly state again just that portion that is your amendment, the wording of your amendment?
Yep. Amend the, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $5,159,406.
With no earmark for?
Can't say that. Well, I mean, I'm stating that, but I can't say that. It's not, it doesn't matter anyway, as Mr. Cedarholm pointed out. I'm just.
So your amendment is to merely expand the total amount of the annual budget by 21,000.
Yep. And I think it's understood what the purpose of that is. And I also understand the realities of what the board can do and can't do.
Okay. Is that made clear to the person who seconded this originally? So it's clear. All right, we have an amendment that's been seconded. Is there any debate on the amendment to Article 3? Any comment or debate on the amendment to Article 3?
Carol Doring, 14 Owl Lane. I have a question. Can someone please repeat what is happening with what Madbury does on this issue and what Durham does on this issue? And also, since my kids are older, I've forgotten, how much are the fees for ORYA that families are paying? Can somebody just talk a little bit about that?
A good question. So do we have somebody on the board who will address that question?
I can start, certainly.
Please.
My understanding is that Madbury does support ORYA. I don't know how much money they put towards the programming. Durham does not, and Lee does not. Towns that don't financially support ORYA aren't kept out of ORYA programming. Just our kids' fees are not offset by the amount that we contribute. The fees range widely depending on which activity. I think hockey is probably the most expensive activity they offer, which my recollection was around $1,800 for a season of play in the organization. Obviously, things like Little League Baseball, Farm League Baseball are much less than that, but there's a wide range of fees.
We're discussing the amendment to Article 3.
Hi, I'm Matt Rustica from 59 Turtle Pond Road. I just want to provide some context. Not a ton of people here who look to have young kids. There's 675 children between the age of 5 and 19 who live in Lee. It was $85 for soccer for my 5-year-old. So it would seem to me that if you wanted to kind of subsidize, the probably 30% of those kids that are kind of statistically low income, then it would come up to the amount of money that ORYA wants anyway, just to offer some context. I understand that there's a history here and stuff, but like, if we want these kids to all really have access, then it seems like the amount of money for like the low income assistance isn't gonna be enough. That's my comment.
Thank you. Katrin?
I agree, and that would be fabulous. The concern that I have is when we were giving the $14,000 or $15,000, I think the total price of that $85 would be maybe $75, at best $65 at some point. We also paid for that. So the amount that we save, that's what we finally said, is that it's such a small difference for the people that live in Lee, that wouldn't it be best if we took that money and to the people that really needed it, paid the whole thing, instead of having to have, you just get a little bit less off the top.
I think I work in the public sector, and I know from other programs that people who are low income typically don't take advantage of programs like that. So I think it's really important that we have enough money in that. This is what I'm trying to say, like in that fund, the assistance fund, to cover whoever might want to, like you said, like some kids are going to do soccer, some kids are going to do dancing, so it's not going to be all of them. But it's my opinion that, $80 is a lot of money for a lot of families,
Thank you. Further debate and discussion on the amendment to Article 3. Further debate on the amendment. Does everyone have a clear understanding of the wording of the amendment at this time? All right, we're going to ask for a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment proposed for Article 3, please signify by raising your voter cards. All those opposed to the amendment on Article 3, please raise your voter cards. The amendment is defeated. Other discussions on Article 3, our budget, other debate and discussions. Further debate on Article 3. Hearing no further debate on Article 3, we're going to pass Article 3. I'm going to ask the town clerk to pass Article 3 to the official ballot as is. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 3?
I move to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 3. Second.
There's a second. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 3, please signify by raising your voter cards. All those opposed to restricting reconsideration. I'm sorry? Karen Rossi, I believe, was the second to that motion. Okay, Article 3 is passed to the official ballot to be considered by voters on March 14th. Article 4. I think Annie, yep, okay. Would you like to come to the podium? Okay.
This is good. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $200,000 to be deposited into the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote required.
Thank you, Annie. You didn't state your name and address. Could you do that for us, please, and then speak to the article?
Anna Marie Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. The trustees have been working on plans to renovate the library building, and during this time, we found many problems that we had to address. There is lead in the exterior paint. There's vermiculite and asbestos in the attic insulation. These are things that need to be fixed before we can renovate, and as a result, we have collected a lot of estimates on what needs to be done, and these estimates, as in the handout that was at the back of the table, add
I
up
believe
to...
that handout is being circulated now, if people want to have a...
It was in the back.
Okay, it's in the back table.
Yep. And those estimated costs came up to be around $200,000. The deferred maintenance on this building needs to be addressed before we can renovate, and therefore, this is why the trustees brought this warrant article forward.
Thank you. That's the presentation for Article 4. Article 4 is now open for debate and discussion. Debate and discussion on Article 4. Please. Name and address again, please.
Hi, I'm Matt Restica from 59 Turtle Pond Road. Nobody else was standing up, so I decided I would say something. My kids go to the library all the time, and I prefer there not to be asbestos there. That's my only comment.
Come on, jeepers. Thank you, Matt. Further debate or discussion on Article 4? Hearing no further debate on Article 4, we're going to ask the town clerk to pass Article 4 to the official ballot. And then I'm looking for a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 4.
I move to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Did you record the second? Yep, Matt Restica. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 4, please raise your voter cards. Those opposed to restricting reconsideration. The motion passes to restrict reconsideration. Article 5. Article 5, our presenter will be Scott Nemeth. You can come to the podium if you like, or the microphone there.
Good morning. Scott Nemeth, Fire Chief. Warrant Article 5, Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $175,000 to be deposited into the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required.
Okay, that's the presentation for Article 5. We'll open the floor for debate and discussion on Article 5. Questions for Chief Nemeth? Anything to add? All right, hearing no debate on Article 5, we'll ask the town clerk to move Article 5 to the official ballot for reconsideration on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 5?
I move to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 5.
I know, right?
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, we have a second to that motion. Do you see the second? Yep. Name, please?
Eric Johnson.
Eric Johnson. Okay, thank you so much. All right, we have a motion on the floor to restrict reconsideration of Article 5. All those in favor, please raise your voter cards. Those opposed? Motion passes to restrict reconsideration. For those of you who are new to the process, this business of restricting reconsideration is something that's evolved in town meetings of all kinds over the years, because on contentious articles, when a contentious article might show up early in a warrant, it might get a positive vote, and then those people go home, and somebody later in the meeting has the opportunity to reconsider that article, and so that's why we do it. And so I know it's a little tedious, but I appreciate your help on that. Article 6, Katrin Casper.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be deposited into the town building's capital reserve fund. This sum is to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from general taxation. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote required. I don't know if I
Stand
need
by.
to go into, yeah, sure.
That's the presentation of Article 6. The floor is now open for debate and discussion of Article 6.
Anna Marie Gazowski, Lamprey Lane. I have a question about the amount, because I think that the Advisory Budget Committee made a recommendation that $160,000 be put into this fund, and I wondered why it's only $100,000.
Thank you. Anybody make a comment to that?
I think when we look at the actual math, we need to save a lot more than that. The concern is that because of inflation, not only is the town experiencing inflation, but the taxpayers are experiencing inflation, which is why there's so many things that are feeling brutal and hard to do, like not, supporting everything we can. The original $160,000 was the $100,000 that we felt was the minimum we should be saving, with the $60,000 that came from the bond that we are no longer paying for the public safety complex. We wanted to hold that place because we are hoping to eventually build our own town municipal building, and we wanted to have that not feel that as much. But we decided it was more important to keep the taxes as low as physically possible, which is why we cut all kinds of things that were very challenging to keep the rate as low as possible during this time of high inflation.
Thank you. Further debate and discussion for Article 6. Is that the information you needed, Annie? Okay. All right, hearing no further debate or discussion on Article 6, I would ask Article 6 be passed to the town clerk to be recorded on our official ballot. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 6?
I move to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 6.
Is there a second? Looks like Mr. Johnson again. All right, we have a motion and a second to restrict reconsideration of Article 6. Those in favor of the motion, please raise your voter card. Those opposed, please raise your voter card. Motion to restrict reconsideration is passed for Article 6. Article 7. Looks like our presenter will be Steve Bullock. Is Steve here? Would one of the, somebody else in the department or somebody in the select board please present Article 7?
Highway Department Road and Bridge Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $90,000 to be deposited into the Highway Department Road and Bridge Improvement Plan Capital Reserve Fund. Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote required.
Okay, questions, debate, deliberation on Article 7. No discussion on Article 7. I'll ask the town clerk to move Article 7 to the official ballot. And then we'll look for a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 7.
I move to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 7.
We have a motion. Second? Oh, you stay at it, Eric, please. All right, we have a motion and a second to restrict reconsideration of Article 7. Please raise your voter card if you're in favor of this motion. All those not in favor of the motion, raise your voter card. The motion to restrict reconsideration is passed. Article 8. Looks like we have Mr. Bullock on the sheet again, but it will be Katrin, I think.
Yep. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $90,000 to be deposited into the Transfer Station Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote required.
Okay, that's the presentation of Article 8. Floor is open for debate, discussion, and questions for Article 8. Are people just cold out there or what? Toasty warm in here. Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah. Name and address again, please.
Hey, Matt Rustica, 59 Turtle Pond Road. What is this for?
Hoping somebody would ask. So we have compiled a list of all the things that will be needed for the transfer station, looking ahead in the years to come, and then figured out how much to pay each year to make sure that we have that. So things like the compactors, things like the machinery, that kind of thing. So that way we have an even amount coming out. It's not up and down as we buy each thing. So we have in the financial planning tool, we'll go through that in detail, the different machineries. I wish Steve was here because he could tell you exactly off the top of his head, but compactors and equipment. What? Oh, you have it right. All right. I don't know which ones of these are exactly, but the things on this list are rebuilt trash compactors, front-end loaders, roll-off 45-yard container, more containers, keeping those balers, bobcats, all the things we need to run the transfer station.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Debate? Questions on Article 8? Hearing no further discussion on Article 8, I'll ask the town clerk to pass Article 8 onto the official ballot to be voted on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 8?
I move to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 8.
Second. Eric Johnson. We have a motion and a second to restrict reconsideration of Article 8. All those in favor, please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. Those opposed, raise your voter card. We have restricted reconsideration of Article 8. Article 9. Looks like Steve Bullock again, but we will have Rebecca present the article.
Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 to be deposited into the Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote required. And before you ask, it's for the highway equipment, which includes such things as plow trucks, the brush chipper, things that we did coming up here, front end loader with attachments, replacing plow trucks, trying to save ahead for all the things that need to be replaced with the highway equipment.
So the floor is open for debate and discussion on Article 9. Questions on Article 9? Hearing none, we'll ask the town clerk to move Article 9 to the official ballot for voting on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 9?
I move to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 9.
We have a motion to restrict. We have a second. Did you get the second again? So, thank you. All those in favor of the motion to restrict reconsideration, please raise your voter card. All those opposed? Thank you. Motion passes to restrict reconsideration of Article 9. Article 10. Article 10, Chief Nimitz. So after you read Article 10, you can speak to your concerns about it. You're the first to speak.
Warrant Article 10, new fire utility pickup truck and equipment. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $65,000 for the purchase of a new fire utility pickup truck and equipment, and to authorize the withdrawal of this amount from the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund for this acquisition, and no amount to be raised from general taxation. This will replace a 2009 Utility 1 that is used as a forestry medical response apparatus. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required. So currently we have Utility 1. It used to be our first due piece on a lot of our calls for forestry and medical calls. We do about 50% medical. We've now switched over with the 24/7 crew. They're using engine 1 as a first due because our response with the on-call members is a little bit lower. So we don't have other people coming in like we used to. So we want our crews to have the appropriate equipment for every call that they do, and that's our engine. So we're trying to convert this truck and purchase a new truck, just a pickup truck with a plow that we currently have. We'll discuss it more in the next warrant article for the other truck, but this will just be a utility truck. We'll have a command board in it, radios, lights. You know, a lot of times when we go on structure fires, we don't like to put our dirty gear inside the cab of our trucks. So the utility will follow and put all of our gear and equipment in the back of the pickup truck, things like that.
Any debate on Article 10 or questions for Chief Nimitz?
Morning, Jen Messiter, 147 Wadley Falls Road. I printed this off the town's website the other day, and it's Article 10 says it's about the 2003 Utility 1, and Article 11 was about the 2009. So I'm a little confused about which truck you're replacing here and which one you're going to refurbish in the next article.
So it was a typo in the first round of the paperwork that came out. So this truck is the 2009.
2009 is being replaced.
Correct, and 2003 is getting refurbished.
Is there a reason why we're refurbishing the older one?
The older one has less miles, and the newer one is a dually. And so the older one, we're going to turn into the full-time forestry. It's not a dually, it's a smaller truck. We've had better luck with the engine. The 2009 currently makes oil. The engine, we've had a lot of problems with it. So the older one is actually more reliable for us.
Interesting, thank you.
Further debate or questions on Article 10? Hearing no further debate or questions on Article 10, I'll ask Article 10 I'll ask the town clerk to transfer Article 10 to the official ballot to be voted on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 10?
I move to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 10.
We have a motion and a second. Annie Gazowski is our second on this one. She was first. I gotta do it that way.
Race going forward.
And you guys, if I say, do I hear a motion, you can just say, so moved, and then you don't have to say it all. But anyway, thank you so much. Okay, those of you who are in favor of restricting reconsideration on Article 10, please raise your voter cards. Those opposed to restricting reconsideration, raise your cards. The motion passes to restrict reconsideration on Article 10. We will therefore go to Article 11.
Warrant Article 11, refurbish Utility 2 and equipment. To see if the town will vote and raise and appropriate the sum of $35,000 to refurbish Utility 2 and equipment for the continued use of a forestry apparatus, and to authorize the withdrawal of this amount from the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund for this acquisition, and no amount to be raised from general taxation. This will allow the department to refurbish the 2003 Ford F-350 to include repairing the body, add a new skid tank and pump and equipment. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required. So as we kind of discussed in the last warrant article, this truck is the 2003 Ford F-350 that we currently have. It used to be the forestry years ago. But then we purchased Utility 1, the newer truck, and moved everything over. The pump that's in that truck is probably 15 to 20 years old. We've had a lot of problems with it. We've rebuilt it. We've rebuilt all the plumbing in it, and we still have continue to have issues. We're looking to upgrade the skid tank, which is actually the tank that holds all the water. The current tank holds about 150. We're looking at a larger tank for that, and just outfitting the whole truck with a new body. The back is currently rusted. The doors are rusted up, so we'd like to remove that, do a flatbed, add some new hose to it, new equipment. We change over the light package, which the light package is probably over 20 years old in that truck, and a new radio as well.
Thank you, Scott. The floor is open for debate and discussion on Article 11. Questions for Chief Nimitz on Article 11? Hearing no further discussion on Article 11, I'll ask the town clerk to pass Article 11 on to the official ballot to be voted on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 11? So moved by Katrin, and second, Eric was first this time. Eric Johnson, second. We have a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 11. All those in favor, raise your voter cards. All those opposed, raise your voter cards. Thank you. The motion is we're restricting reconsideration of Article 11. Article 12. That looks like will be Rebecca.
All right, warrant Article 12, Internal Service Expendable Trust Fund for Accrued Benefits, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be deposited into the Internal Service Expendable Trust Fund for Accrued Benefits. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote required. The definition for this fund is paying employee benefits owed to an employee at the time of resignation, layoff, severance, and/or termination. So we are saving for in case someone is to do one of those things, and then we owe them for their time.
Okay, that's your presentation for Article 12. The floor is open for discussion and debate on Article 12. Hearing no further debate or discussion on Article 12, I'll ask the town clerk to pass Article 12 to the official ballot to be voted on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 12?
So moved.
Is there a second? Mr. Johnson. We have a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 12. All those in favor, raise your voter cards. And all those opposed, please raise your voter cards. Thank you. Reconsideration of Article 12 is restricted. Article 13. Looks like we have Chief Nimitz again.
Warrant Article 13, Fire Ponds and Cisterns Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be deposited into the Fire Ponds and Cisterns Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required. So currently we put money away into this fund so that we can add cisterns, to the rest of the town. We do have an ordinance in town that when there's a new development that comes in that has 3 houses or more on a lot that we need a cistern. As we add houses to that development, it adds cisterns, which then helps the fire insurance rating for the town. Over the years, we've seen that land's been purchased by the town and there will be no development. So there's areas in town that we definitely want to add cisterns so that we can use them for fire suppression. These are 30,000 gallon tanks that we put in the ground that could be cistern or fiberglass. And also we use it to refurbish old fire ponds that we have in town. We've done Riverside Farm, Tamarack, and James Farm as well. So we've cleared out all the brush, we've dug them so that we can continue using them in the future, but we're trying to go away from the fire ponds and add cisterns to the rest of the town. The next one coming up is we'd like to add a cistern at the public safety complex for fire suppression there.
Thank you, Scott. The floor is open for debate or discussion on Article 13. Chuck Cox, you just came in. If you want to get caught up, you can, So. All right. Hearing no further discussion or debate or questions on Article 13, I'll ask the town clerk to pass Article 13 on to the official ballot to be voted on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 14? 13, Article 13. So moved. Second. We have a second. The motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 13. Please raise your voter cards if you're in favor of this motion. All those opposed, raise your voter cards. The motion passes to restrict reconsideration of Article 13. Article 14, Katrin, looks like your name's on the list.
To see if the town will vote to establish a contingency fund for fiscal year 2024 for unanticipated expenses that may arise, and further to raise and appropriate $20,000 to go into the fund. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from general taxation. Any appropriation left in the fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund. The governing body shall annually publish a detailed report of all expenditures from the fund. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required. This fund is incredibly helpful for unforeseen things, something like maybe one department has staffing issues and needs more overtime than we planned, or maybe they have something breaks that we hadn't planned for. So it's just an important fund to have access to.
Thank you. The floor is open for debate and discussion on Article 14.
Hi, me again, Matt Rustica from 59 Turtle Pond Road. I've heard, I'm new to town, I apologize. The unassigned fund balance, is that just like money that was raised but not budgeted for in the last fiscal year? Or is it like a rainy day fund, or, okay.
We'll have, who wants to address that one? How about Andy address this one?
It's certainly not a rainy day fund. It is the money that rolls over from year to year in the town's budget that has not been assigned for a specific purpose. Typically, the most common use of it is for things like this. If you know you've got enough fund balance in your accounts, you can use it to take care of warrant articles without increasing your taxation. The more common usage of unassigned fund balance is when it comes time to set the tax rate in September or October. Typically, the Select Board will take a certain amount. The Department of Revenue Administration recommends a percentage that you should take from your fund balance to offset the tax rate.
Can you tell me what the unassigned fund balance was this year?
I do not have what it is presently, and it's fluid. It changes, month to month as you go through that. If you want to talk to me after the meeting, I can certainly get that information to you, though.
Okay, thank you.
I'm hearing a little discussion up here, so waiting.
Just want to get you all the information we can.
Sure. Just in reference to the tax rate setting, typically the board tries to take whatever the surplus that we can see on paper from the budget and return that to offset the tax rate. I believe this year it was close to $180,000 that was used to level the tax rate from the unassigned fund balance. And typically the Department of Revenue, if memory serves correctly, recommends that you use 8 to 17% of your fund balance to offset expense and tax rate, and retain the rest.
Okay, the floor is still open for discussion of Article 14. Yep.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. I'm sorry, I think that the town administrator misspoke. The recommendation is for the amount of fund balance that you should keep being as those percentages of your total budget. So, and the other piece that I think was missing is, where does this money come from? A more complete explanation of where this money comes from. And it comes from, at the end of the year, you haven't spent all of your budget because since we don't have perfect vision of what future costs will be, in general, budgets have to be a little higher than they run on average. If you made your budget just the average amount, then many years you would run out of money before the end of the year. And so, as it was pointed out this past year, it was Usually there's roughly around $200,000 left over that comes in. Sometimes it's also because additional revenue comes in that wasn't expected. And I think that the Select Board should be praised for using that money toward the amount to be raised so that taxes will be lower, rather than allowing that to build up and then use it for other things.
Thank you, John. Other questions, comments, and debate on Article 14? Hearing no further discussion on Article 14, I'll ask the town clerk to pass Article 14 onto the official ballot for voting on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 14?
So moved.
A motion. Do we have a second? We do have a second. Mr. Johnson again. We have a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 14. If you agree, please raise your voter cards. If you're opposed, please raise your voter card. Thank you. We have restricted reconsideration of Article 14. Article 15. Looks like we have Katrinka, I'm sorry. It does say Katrina on my...
We're not confusing it all together.
When we email each other, it's interesting
so
with the
much.
autofill. Katrinka Pellecchio, Wiswell Road, and I'm a library trustee. Warrant Article 15, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $35,000 to be used for the renovation of the Lee Public Library and to authorize withdrawal of this amount from the Library Capital Reserve Fund for this purpose, and no amount to be raised from general taxation. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required. And I want to say that this particular warrant article is for the actual renovation that we've been working on since 2006, and we'll start this year. Just had to get that in.
Stand by. We might have a question for you.
Jen Messiter, Wadley Falls Road. Quick question, given our last discussion on the other article, will the current renovations or the upcoming renovations be to deal with the asbestos and such?
I'm sorry, will the what?
This part of the renovation, will this deal with the problems, the asbestos type problems that were noted before?
Well, we do have an ongoing renovation that is addressing things like shoring up the floor in the schoolhouse that have been long planned and reconfiguring. And it was as we've gotten estimates on the building that we discovered, vermiculite insulation in your attic is probably asbestos. Nobody wants to test for it because they assume. By the way, children are safe from it. It hasn't been, because it's not being touched, no worries. And we discovered lead paint and the rotting clapboards, which were not part of our original renovation. I mean, that we've been working on. We've been concentrating on the inside.
Okay, so this is like the original scope of the renovation?
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stand by, stand by. There might be other questions. Any other questions in debate or questions on Article 15? Article 15. Seeing no further debate or discussion on Article 15, I'll ask the town clerk to pass Article 15 onto the official ballot to be voted on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 15?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Annie Gazowski is the second. Motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 15. All those in favor, please raise your voter cards. All those opposed, raise your voter cards. Thank you. We've restricted reconsideration of Article 15. Article 16. Katrin.
Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be deposited into the Revaluation Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required. We have to do a revaluation every 5 years, is that right? 5 years. So the cost is generally around, I think, what is it, 40,000? 50,000?
We're expecting it to be around 50,000.
Great. So we have to save for it. This is 1 year. If every year we save a little bit, then it's not a big bump in the taxes again. What'd you say? Does anyone have any questions?
Chris Regan, 19 Earl Drive. Wondering why that's considered a capital expense versus, it's a strange combination, I think.
Instead of a budget expense? Because you'd have to pay for it that year, correct? Yeah, come on up.
Andy, stand by. Katrin?
Sure. I think because it's such a large expense, the board has attempted to mediate the cost over several years. This past reval that we did the year before last was a little over $36,000. We went with the absolute lowest bidder, which turned out to be not such a good idea. Looking forward, it could be as high as $60,000, but just to offset that all hitting in 1 year in one budget, the board has chosen to capital reserve it.
It's just, for me, it's interesting that it's called capital. Normally, capital has to do with buildings and things like that, but I understand the process of saving money towards it. It's just a funny place to put it in my head. Thank you.
I am not sure specifically. I suppose it could be set up as an expendable trust fund or something like that, if that was the preferred term, but it would require a vote of the meeting on a warrant article to do that, I believe.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem, just, it's strange to me.
No, you're correct.
Okay, thanks.
So the floor is open for debate and discussion on Article 16.
Donald Anderson, 50 Northside Road, Indley. Along that same conversation, and I was relooking the budget because I figured it's just my ignorance on how this is all accumulated in town funds. Is there an assets versus liabilities portion that would have all of these reserve funds listed and how much is presently in them, or?
Yes, we actually.
Come on
Okay,
over, please.
I missed it then. All right.
So we have people from the Budget Committee here as well, I believe, so.
Yes, and I don't know, it's in the PowerPoint presentation, if you picked up that sheet. We also have a slide that we could go back and show reading if you want.
No, not necessary. I have that. I'll get it. Thank
It's
you for answering.
also available in the entryway to the town office, and Trustee John Tappan updates it at the end of every month or the beginning of the month following the end of every month.
Thank you.
Okay, the floor remains open for discussion and debate on Article 16. Okay, hearing no further discussion on Article 16, I'd ask the town clerk to pass Article 16 onto the official ballot for voting on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 16? And there's a second? Mr. Johnson? All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 16, please raise your voter cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion passes to restrict reconsideration of Article 16. We'll move on to Article 17. And I personally, between Article 17 and 18, I'm going to have to listen very carefully. So who's our presenter for Article 17? Rebecca.
Warrant Article 17, readopt the optional veterans tax credit. Shall the town of Lee readopt the optional veterans tax credit in accordance with RSA 72:28 Roman numeral 2 for an annual tax credit of $750 on residential property? Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote required. to only be veterans, not active. Okay. One of the big changes that happened is the state is now allowing all members in the military, both current and previous members, to now take advantage of this if we vote to adopt it. Previous credit was also $500.
Floor is open for debate, questions, and discussion on Article 17.
Hi, Matt Rustica, 59 Turtle Pond. What's the relationship between, to Don's point, 17 and 18?
We could jump ahead just for discussion purposes, I think.
One is the change in the amount from 500 to 750, and the other is allowing active duty members. So when we saw that you can now allow active duty, we said, well, wouldn't it make sense to make that amount more? In doing so, we have to make a second warrant article because we'd already voted in the 500. So basically, you're saying we're moving it from 500 to 750, and we're now allowing more people. Does that make sense?
Which one is which? It's not clear.
Okay.
Well, let's have Andy take a shot.
If you're asking me just what's the difference between the all veterans credit and the optional credit, there was a contention a few years back over years of service, essentially involving the Vietnam conflict. Depending on when you were first sent to Vietnam, you may or may not have been considered a veteran, depending on whether the government had declared war yet or not. I believe this happened in some other conflicts as well. So the optional veterans credit actually was the first veterans credit available in New Hampshire, and there were a fair number of people that were prevented from getting the full credit because they weren't listed as having served in a actual conflict based on government dates. So the all veterans credit, which came after the optional, it's exactly the same credit, but there's none of the criteria that were on the optional veterans tax credit. So it's available to anyone who can prove they're a veteran. The credits are the same.
I'm simply asking, what am I voting for on number 17? Is that the increase, or is it the allow all people, even active duty?
It is both. Each of those articles, they're very similar articles. Each one moves the credit from 500 to 750, and each one enables active military members to receive the same credit that formerly only retired.
Oh, so this is
veterans.
just us responding to like some vagary in legislation somewhere else?
Yes.
Okay.
Andy, can I?
Please come to the microphone.
My name's Liz Stone. I'm a resident, and I'm the Deputy Town Clerk Tax Collector. So I think the difference, there's two different tax credits. There's an optional one, and there's an all veterans. So those are two different tax credits. And what it sounds like one of the differences you're talking about, Rebecca, is that previously, for example, this happened in my family, you were currently serving and not considered a veteran by law. So if you had served for example, my now ex-husband, 25 years active duty service across multiple conflicts, you weren't qualified for the veterans tax credit. However, someone who served 3 years, honorably discharged, was considered a veteran. So I think this is remediating that.
So this just basically redefines veterans, what veterans are, and also ups the amount to $750. Further debate and discussion on Article 17. Hearing no further debate or discussion on Article 17, I'd ask the town clerk to pass Article 17 onto the official ballot for voting on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 17? So moved. And a second. Mr. Cox for the second, just a little ahead of you. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 17, please raise your voter card. Thank you. All those opposed to that restriction, raise your voter card. The motion is passed to restrict reconsideration of Article 17. And we move on to Article 18, which is a similar one. So we'll ask Rebecca again.
Okay, warrant Article 18, readopt all the veterans tax credit. Shall the town of Lee readopt the all veterans tax credit in accordance with RSA 72:28B for an annual tax credit of $750 on residential property? The select board recommends this article, majority vote required.
Okay, the floor is open for debate and discussion on Article 18. Hearing no debate on Article 18, we'll ask the town clerk to pass Article 18 onto the official ballot to be voted on March 14th. Do we hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 18? Motion is made. Is it second? See, now Eric's given up on us. So, please. Please, who was our official second?
Don got that one.
John.
Don.
Okay. Thank you. All right, all those in favor of the motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 18, please raise your voter cards. Thank you. Those opposed? Voter cards. Thank you. The motion passes to restrict reconsideration of Article 18. We'll move therefore to Article 19. And looks like Katrin.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
There was a question asked earlier, John Tappan, trustee of trust funds. There was a question asked earlier about the trust fund or the reserve fund for a reevaluation of the town. And I was not able to find the RSA that authorizes that quickly enough.
But you found it now.
But I have it now.
Okay, please proceed.
Could I? So RSA 35-1, which authorizes the establishment of reserves, it lists a number of purposes, and the third one listed is, quote, a reappraisal by appraisers of the Department of Revenue Administration or such other appraisers, appraisal firms, or corporations approved by the Commissioner of Revenue Administration of the real estate in such town for tax assessment purposes. And so that's why we have a capital reserve fund for that purpose. That RSA is what authorizes that.
Thank you, John. That's helpful. Saw you back there pounding on your keyboard. I knew something was coming, so thank you. Okay, Article 18. I believe we have Katrin.
19. All right. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to adopt the Lee Community Power Electric Aggregation Plan, which authorizes the Select Board to develop and implement Lee Community Power, as described therein pursuant to RSA 53-E:7. The program would provide a new default electric supply and new renewable energy supply options for customers in Lee. There is no cost to the town budget and no obligation to participate. Customers can opt out at any time and return to utility default services. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required. I think we have some people that want to talk
Please,
about it.
if you have some explanation of it, you could.
Do you
Okay.
let the Energy Committee share?
Okay, a member of the Energy Committee is going to speak to it. Okay, can you do it here or there?
Come on up.
Name and address, please.
Lou Grondin, 14 Owl Lane. Community power is it's not a new concept. It's kind of a complicated concept, so I'm going to try to explain as much as I can. On March 14th, Lee voters will decide whether the town can adopt the Lee Community Power Electric Aggregation Plan, which authorizes the Select Board to develop and implement Lee Community Power. Major goals of the initiative are competitive energy rates, renewable energy options, price stability, and local energy options, supply options. Utilities own no power plants. They buy the electricity from companies such as Direct Energy, Constellation, Green Mountain Energy, and many others who act as middlemen and are referred to as suppliers. Suppliers offer a mix of electricity from different sources, such as gas-fired plants, solar, nuclear, etc. Energy supply is a pass-through cost to the utility. Utilities do not profit from the energy supply portion of your bill. The utilities profit derives from providing transmission and distribution services. They make money on the infrastructure and services that provide power and serve you in an emergency. Every customer is allowed to choose their own supplier if they want to, and many customers have chosen to do that. Ever since the state's electricity restructuring law was passed in 1996, businesses have flocked to alternative energy providers, to the point where nearly 90% of Eversource's large users get their power elsewhere. That's from the New Hampshire Business Review. I think it was November. That has not been true. A lot of large users have been getting their power elsewhere, but that has not been true for 70% of small businesses and 85% of residential customers who have for years stuck with their default utility. If you're an Eversource customer, then Eversource is your default utility. They simply don't have the time or the sophistication to research numerous plans to see which would benefit them. And most of the time, as one Massachusetts study determined, they end up paying more when switching to a new supplier than by staying. In the Community Power Program, a municipality pools the demand of its residents and small businesses, creating substantial buying power that it can leverage to purchase electricity at a competitive rate while meeting local goals such as increasing local renewable energy, supporting energy efficiency, and providing greater price stability. Customers are provided more supply choices in the program, but the utility continues to deliver the electricity, maintain the poles and wires, provide emergency services during an outage, and handle all the electricity billing. Unlike Eversource and NHEC, the co-op, who can only purchase their energy from a supplier twice a year. They only have two times a year, 6 months apart, where they can get a contract with a supplier from the energy. The town is not bound by this rigid schedule. Market timing and buying power are used to find lower rates. I'm just going to skip to the end here. Here's a few recent quotes from the utilities. This one is from the electric co-op. The utilities business model doesn't rely on any profit from the energy supply. Jeremy Clark, NHEC's financial planning, analysis, and rates manager, explains, NHEC fully supports the development of community power aggregations, CPAs, and believes that they can be a powerful tool for local governments to make policy decisions on the electric service for their citizens. NHEC also strongly supports the ability of our members to access competitive supply options and was an early adopter of retail choice in New Hampshire. Here's a quote, a recent quote from Eversource. We support customer choice and want all our customers to pay the lowest possible price for electricity supply. It's faded there. Whether it's a community power program, a competitive supplier, or our default basic service rate, the launch of community aggregation in New Hampshire provides an additional option for Granite Staters as we all strive for more affordable energy. And we look forward to continued efforts to implement power aggregation for all our participating communities. So our utilities are supporting community power programs, basically. Community power aggregation is a tested concept. Massachusetts enacted the first community power aggregation bill in 1995. By the end of the last decade, nearly 1,900 municipalities with a population of 36 million have opted for community power in the U.S. Following the 2019 passage of Senate Bill 286, over 50 New Hampshire towns are now in some stage of planning a community power program. Participation in the program is voluntary. All residents and businesses within a municipality are eligible to participate in the program, but have no obligation to do so. The town's draft community power plan outlines 4 choices for residents and small businesses and everybody, 3 of which offer renewable energy in addition to the state minimum now required, which is currently 22.5%. So you would have the option to have a greater percentage of your supply energy be renewable if you want to. Lee's plan would engage Standard Power and Good Energy, a full-service, customer-focused community power consulting team. Community power consultants will provide their expertise, staff time, and services for no charge to the town. The consulting team, which works at its own risk, is paid a fee embedded in the price of power agreed upon at the outset. I'm almost done. Standard Power serves over 65 towns and school districts in New Hampshire for their energy supply needs, including renewable energy through group net metering and direct consulting services. Good Energy provides community power services to hundreds of cities and towns looking for better choices, competitive costs, clean energy solutions. 11 other New Hampshire municipalities, including Keene, who have already launched their program, also selected Standard Power. According to Emily Manns, a community power consultant for Standard Power, this is a quote, Our approach is to take our experienced brokerage skills and basic brokerage tools to negotiate the best rates for customers with low fees. We can't promise savings. No one can, but it is our mission to deliver great savings to customers so they can pursue their goals for cost savings and more local renewable energy. That's it. Should I stay for questions?
Thank you very much. We're going to open Article 19 for questions and discussion and deliberation. Any questions on Article 19? You'll probably be answering these.
I'm going to try.
Jen Messiter, Wadley Falls Road. So I'm familiar with the concept of switching suppliers. I've been doing it for 10 years, but I would love to get out of the shopping around process. I've been shopping around because I've wanted to be 100% renewable. Will that be an option if this passes?
Yes. I think that is one of the options.
Okay.
That is the highest renewable option.
Yeah, you can't go higher than 100%.
Right.
Great, thanks.
Though sometimes I wonder.
Give it 110.
Don Anderson, 50 North Side Road. Just a little additional information on the renewable sources is that what this does more than anything, it gives every individual electric supply payer options. The lowest option, there is a lowest cost option, and we went and did a survey of the community. We had a surprising positive response, 104 people. And over 53% said they were interested in increasing the renewable energy certificates. Many, the highest single percentage was they want lower cost. That will be an option as well. So there's lower cost. There's additional renewable energy certificates over the 22.5%, which will make an impact on energy conservation now. And then there is a 50% and 100% renewable option. So really it's the options that it gives every individual that is important for accepting this warrant.
Thank you.
Chuck Cox, 36 Captain Smith Emerson Road. I have a question on net metering. We have a fairly large display or solar display, as other people in town do, and I'm wondering how this works into this program. How are the rates set for reimbursement or other things?
The rates are not set until, well, if the warrant article is adopted, then there's going to be a lot of negotiations, and that's one of the things that is going to be negotiated. But the rep from Standard Power said that they will be equal to, at least equal to what people are getting now. And yeah.
So I'm pretty sure, from what I understood, and we can get more verification on this, that if you already have that plan, that you wouldn't be in the opt-out, you'd be in an opt-in, and you would talk to them about what your plan is. Everyone has such different plans throughout the town, so it might be that you are already in a better situation, that's possible, or that you can do this, which is possible along with what you're doing. It depends on your power company, what your deal is, that kind of thing. So they would work with you individually. That's the great thing about this program, is that instead of us as a town having to navigate this, negotiate this, hire people to manage it, Standard Power would do that work for us, and they would be able to communicate with you and find the best deal for you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add something?
Certainly.
I just want to add that everybody can opt out even before the program starts. And so if they are not happy with their rate or anything, they can opt out at any time for no cost. And once you opt out, you're automatically back with your former utility, your default utility, either the co-op or Eversource.
Thought of another question. Because I am with a competitive supplier right now, I know I'm not going to be opted in automatically. I have to choose, and my current plan ends in November. So timing on this, if this passes in March, how long will it take to go live?
Well, everybody in town will get an opt-in and an opt-out card, and it can be done online, over the phone, or through the mail. And so if you just send in your card and...
Your timing.
And, you get, they say 36 days, 3 days for the cards to get to you. You have 30 days to mail it back, and then they allow 3 more days for the
That question too.
power.
I think Katrin knows my question.
Yes, so you're thinking, I'm going to honor my contract until November, and I'd like to be able to opt in. What if we've already started the program?
Right.
You can opt in or opt out all throughout the year. You can do it, basically, it's, the cycle is 12, is a month, so every 12 times a year you could do it. You could opt in, out, in, out all the time.
So I guess my question is, come October, I'm shopping around again.
Right.
Will this plan be ready for me to opt in? Or will it still be negotiating?
The hope is yes. However, Standard Power has said there's 2 times we could do it. It's possible if we get everything together and it's very organized and we have a great deal, we could start in the summer or it could be the fall. We do not want to go forward unless there is a healthy, hearty savings to the community. So as long as that's in place, then we can move forward. So hopefully by the time in November, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, but yes.
Okay, so I have to wait and see.
Yeah, so the details will come. We have to vote it in, and then we have to start working on the contract to find what that deal would be, and then you would be able to decide, is this better or not as good as what I have? If it turns out that for a period of time, the community power was way better than Eversource's energy or the co-ops, then you could be in, and then all of a sudden if it switched, you could actually switch over until it got better again. So that's the nice thing. You have the ability to change.
Yeah, anytime. No lock-in, no early term fee.
Bingo. No contracts, nothing.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, Article 19. We still have a couple more coming up, so.
Paul Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. I have 2 questions. First, we have a small solar array we are net metering. And just a few minutes ago, you were talking about the interface between people who are net metering and the program. And I'm not sure I understand. So we are net metering. Are we automatically in this program? Or?
No, you have to opt in.
You have to opt in.
Katrin, why don't you go to the microphone?
Sorry.
Thank you.
You would have to opt into the program as opposed to opting out of the program because you have already a relationship that's different outside of the normal standard.
Yeah, and that's and there are others in town who have net metering, and that's a special case because we're already doing some of the things that this proposes to do. Okay, so what I'm hearing, I just want to make sure I understand, is that at the point of membership, we can simply opt out if we want to opt out. Okay. My second question is relates to the fact that the town is really acting as the agent on behalf of the customers in the town. Therefore, the town will be required to sign a contract. Do you have any examples of what the nature and term of that contract might be? How many years? What's the nature of it?
They usually strive for an 18-month to 2-year contract. It can be, they can do 6-month intervals. It could be a year, 18 months, 2 years. They strive for the longest contract they can, but when prices are volatile, they might go for a shorter one.
Okay, I want to make sure I understand. I do know that Standard Power contracts with suppliers, okay? I am talking about the town, in this case, and the town
well,
is...
The consultant draws up the contract for the town, so it's actually the town that has the contract, and Community Power is the consultant. They do a lot of the work. They handle the billing, they send out the notices, which is actually paid for by the supplier, but the town decides. The town can decide if they want 1 year, 18 months, 2 years.
Okay, so it's kind of revolving. And to be clear, I just want to make sure, the town's legal counsel would be involved in reviewing this contract. So there are some fees.
Just Don Anderson, 50 Northside Road. Just a couple clarifications. The warrant article itself authorizes the Board of Selectmen to work with Standard Power and through good energy to get energy supply for the town as an aggregation. That is an electrical services agreement that they come to, and it could be a year, could be a year and a half, could be 2 years, depending on what the select board and Standard Power can come to an agreement on. In terms of timing, so once the warrant article passes, those negotiations will take place between the board and Standard Power. Standard Power, if an ESA can be agreed to, they will send out a card to every citizen that states exactly what their rates will be for the 4 options, and people get to choose an option to opt out of the standard one. The standard one will be slightly higher, as I mentioned, in terms of renewables and at a competitive rate. Otherwise, why would people take it? The thing that really strikes me as part of the Energy Committee and in the discussions with Standard Power is that from a business perspective, they have to be competitive in order to remain in agreement with the town. The second thing in terms of timing is that they did state to the Energy Committee that net metering folks and others who have special agreements with their power companies now will not be automatically opted in, and they're more than willing to work with anybody on those items. The whole reason, and I think, again, a business perspective, for having it be an opt-out instead of an opt-in. We've had opt-in for many years as an option. And unless you can get the aggregated power to be able to take it to an energy supplier, you can't get enough to make it competitive. So that's the reason for the opting out versus opt-in for the ROG. That's resident and general meter customers. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm wondering if the Energy Committee could put together a little bulleted information package before the March 14th vote and put it out to the folks. Seems to be a lot of moving parts to it, and so that would be very helpful. Any other discussion on Article 19? Hearing no further, well, I just wish they could get the lines back up after an ice storm a little quicker. That would be my...
Working on that end too.
Article 19. Would ask, if seeing no further discussion, I would ask Article 19, the town clerk to pass Article 19 to the official ballot for voting on March 14th. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 19?
So moved.
And do I hear a second? Barb, walk up for a second. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 19, please raise your voter card. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your voter card. The motion passes to restrict reconsideration of Article 19. Petition Article 20. Looks like we have Rebecca.
Petition warrant Article 20, tax rate impact, to require the annual budget and all special and separate financial warrant articles having a tax impact contain a notation stating the estimated tax rate impact of the article as authorized under RSA 32:5V-B. The Select Board does not recommend this article. Majority vote required.
Could you address it a little bit?
So it is a petition warrant article, meaning it came from a resident who got enough signatures to put it on to up to vote. The Select Board did not recommend this article because setting the tax rate is complicated. We often use the unassigned balance to offset the tax rate. There's other considerations, and so just using a simple formula to be like, this is how your taxes change would not give you an accurate picture. The select board did say, though, however, that we thought it would be important in the voter's guide to give some indication of the tax implication. Because it would be in the voter's guide, we wouldn't necessarily have to follow the formula dictated by the state, which can overestimate the tax rate.
Okay, the floor is open for discussion on petition Article 20. Discussion and questions? Hearing no discussion on petition article, oh, we have one, okay. I'm getting a little jumpy here at the end, you know?
Sure, thank you. I guess I like the explanation of the board in terms of why they don't see it. And I'm just wondering if the select board does not recommend this article because it is difficult to determine a tax rate, the complexity of the tax rate, something additional, or was that discussed at length already and decided against?
Would address it.
Obviously not a member of the select board, but I can give you some of the rationale and discussion I've had with select board members. Typically, there's the formula used to calculate the tax rate. It doesn't include things like unassigned fund balance, offsetting revenue, any of the other things that the board uses to actually create the tax rate. If you just take what you're going to spend and what you think you're going to collect and calculate a tax rate, it is almost always wrong. And just not to single out the poor ABC, but just to give you an example, I went back to 2017. Every year, the Budget Committee, when they complete their budget, attempts to put forth an estimated tax rate. That tax rate has always been off, typically by more than $1 when the tax rate is actually set. So when you try to calculate a tax rate sometime in February or March and plug it into the budget, you're really giving the voters, in most cases, a much inflated tax rate over what they're actually going to see. And I think it could have a devastating effect on passage of warrant articles and passage of your budget as a whole.
Thank you. Clears things up a little bit. Petition Article 20. Any further discussion or debate on petition Article 20? Please.
Barb Walkup, 38 Birch Hill Road. It says it's the article as authorized under RSA 32:5, V-B. Does that mean that this, that the state, that a law was passed requiring towns to do this, or is it just an optional thing that towns can do this?
What that RSA states is that the town can adopt this if it so chooses, and if the town does adopt it, it would take effect next year during the budget cycle.
Okay.
That RSA is just an authorizing RSA.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on petition Article 20. Hearing no further discussion on Article 20, I'd ask the town clerk to pass petition Article 20 to the official ballot to be decided on March 14th, their voting place. Do I hear a motion to restrict reconsideration of petition Article 20?
So moved.
Do we have a second for that motion? Annie. Okay, we have a motion to restrict reconsideration. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your voter cards. Thank you. All those opposed? We've restricted reconsideration of Article 20. Petition Article 21. Rebecca.
Petition warrant Article 21, suspend removal or demolishing Lee Parish House. Shall the town suspend efforts to remove or demolish the Lee Parish House until July 1st, 2028 to allow the Lee Heritage Commission and the town of Lee to sufficient time to explore options for its potential preservation and future use? Majority vote required.
Can you explain Elaine, a little bit, anything to add?
The town bought the property next to the church in the hope of development with the parish house on it, and has gone back and forth whether or not that building will be demolished or not demolished. We've voted a couple times, one way or the other. I think the hope with the next two warrant articles is perhaps to put this to bed.
Sure, please. You're next.
In discussions with the board, I was requested to find out what would happen if warrant articles 21 and 22 both passed, or what might happen if they both failed. And I had a legal opinion delivered yesterday, and if either of them pass or either of them fail, the decision of what to do with the building actually falls to the select board. The attorney pointed out that both warrant articles 21 and 22 are in fact advisory in nature because the select board has actual authority over buildings and property in the town. She also pointed out that the previous warrant articles that were passed were also advisory in nature, and if the board so chose, they could do what they liked with the parish house. So that's what would happen if they both passed or they both failed.
Tricia?
I'm going to like...
Oh, please do. Your name isn't Eileen, is it?
No, but my actions are. My actions are. Hello, Patricia Jenkins, 9 Harvey's Mill Road, and the Lee Heritage Commission. I'd like to review a little bit and talk about why we have this article. When Lee acquired the additional town center land from the church, the parish house came with it. A warrant article at that time charged the Lee Heritage Commission with the investigation of the parish house condition and a possible future use. State agencies were asked to assess the historic value. The New Hampshire Preservation Alliance studies found that our Lee Parish House the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance studies found our Lee Parish House of value and honored it on their 7 to Save historic building registry, thereby making it more strongly eligible for sizable money grants. Studies found the building construction and its roof to be sound. There is a weakened foundation under the addition and some asbestos issues. These, along with major cleanup and addition of modern facilities and utilities, have to be addressed. The building has no water to freeze, good on a day like this, no septic, no expense for utilities, and is closed to visitors. As it stands, the cost to the town is its share of the town building's insurance policy. The same early warrant article carried the end date with a destruction clause to avoid having an eyesore and dangerous building in the center of town. The parish house is not that. It is the end date we are addressing today. As of now, there is no answer to the future use of the parish house. It has, however, been found to be an asset to Lee, not only in its historic part as the townscape, but as a source of future grant monies in a town building project. Lee is financially busy right now, working toward a new town office building, some town hall meeting space, and a library. Our parish house can wait. Its turn can come. We ask that it not be destroyed. Thank you from the Lee Heritage Commission.
Thank you, Tricia. Floor is open for discussion of petition Article 21. Please. Either one, either one. You can form a line.
Anderson, 50 North Side. I guess my question is what the additional 5 years is expected to, what steps are expected in those 5 years by the Heritage Commission to, what actions?
Good question. Here comes Tricia again.
This would give us time, again, to look at what we have. It is causing no problem where it is. There is a potential of it helping the town. There's a potential for finding a use for it. There's a potential for an income. There are many things that are possible. But the money is not there right now for the town to do anything to help support it. In 5 years, I'd rather 10, but in 5 years, who knows? Perhaps its turn will be there, and it will still be available for us to use.
Is that helpful, Mr. Anderson? So he's asking if there are specific actions by the Heritage Commission to on the table.
Continued investigation to see what we can do with it. But the town isn't ready to act on it right now.
Thank you. Please come forward. I know it's a chore, but we are live streaming, believe it or not, right into the living rooms and breakfast nooks of all the people in town.
You mentioned that there are grants. Are there any specific grants or loans or other things from the state that are being investigated specifically for the preservation of it?
Specific grants cannot really be approached right now. We have to have something we want to use it for. The state frowns on giving you money if you can't tell them why you want it.
I guess that's it. Okay, others who are, why don't you sit up front here, Patricia? And please.
Chris Regan, 19 Earl Drive. Just wondering, leaving a building unattended for 5 more years, is there intent of the town to put some kind of maintenance into it so it doesn't deteriorate over the next 5 years? I don't know how long it's been vacant. I've been here a couple of years. But just nobody there, nothing being done to it. I would assume an old building would need some kind of attention.
Tricia, why don't you come up here, because it looks like we're going to have some other questions for you.
Thank you.
The question was on deteriorating condition of the building and that liability to the town.
The building, as it stands, has no water. It has no facilities at all. It is closed off. The deterioration between now and then, I don't see as a major issue. It is essentially in a holding pattern. There won't be anything happening in there that is going to cause more problem. It's tight. The roof is sound. So continued maintenance inside, no. It's in a condition that It's going to have to be cleaned up and facilities and things added anyway. I don't know how else to answer that question.
Thank you, Tricia.
I don't necessarily have any questions, but I have some comments. This is Dave Cedarholm, 81 Fox Garrison Road. I'm also the chair of the Capital Improvements Program Committee. And this year we included demolition of the building as a line item in the capital improvements plan, but without a number, actually. So I've had an opportunity to take not a look inside the building, because the town has actually determined the building to be unsafe to enter because of structural issues. And so essentially the building today is condemned because we're not allowed to enter it. And so it does create some issues in terms of addressing some of the internal problems with the building. There are structural issues. There was water damage from a leak a number of years back, and from my conversations with a building inspector who has been into the basement, there's some significant dry rot in structural members in the basement. And so preserving the building, and I'm hugely in favor of preserving old buildings, but particularly if there's a use for it. And today, it appears that we don't have a use for it. Using it is problematic because it's only 10 inches away from the property line, and it was purchased by the town with the intention of demolishing it and actually making use of that space for new town facilities. If we were to use it, and if people determine that that's the plan, I would help support that as a member of the Capital Improvements Program Committee. But in addition to replacing all the utilities, you need to also mitigate any lead issues. There's a vinyl siding on the outsides. We're assuming that there's lead paint on the wood clapboards on the outside. Don't know exactly about the asbestos issues and where that is, but I understand there's a 50-year-old boiler and a forced hot air system, heating system that needs to be replaced. Typically, those forced hot air systems were not insulated with asbestos, so I doubt that that's the case. But anyway, you would need to move this building and put it on a brand new foundation to make use of it. And where that would be, I don't know. But I see that as a major factor, aside from the fact that we would essentially need to gut the inside and start from scratch with all the utilities. It is poorly insulated or not insulated at all, from what I understand. So trying to make use of this building as a town building, I see is seriously problematic. I also had the opportunity this week to reach out to a demolition contractor located in Barrington, New Hampshire, Earthworks, and they were able to quickly put together a couple of quotes. Best case scenario, we're looking at under $25,000 to demolish the building. Worst case scenario, considering asbestos and lead, we're looking at under $50,000. And they also included recycling all materials to a LEED certified recycling facility. So it's not, maybe we could strip it down and the fire department could burn it. I'm not sure if that would be a good idea, since the church's water well is pretty close to the house, which is another issue. But for planning purposes, I think those numbers are something that we could probably hang our hat on. Obviously, we would need to do some due diligence, try to get access inside the building to do some testing, even though it is structurally unsound, and from a liability standpoint, the select board has said nobody goes in the building. But it kind of puts it into perspective. I'd be interested to see how the town's folks vote on these two warrant articles.
Thank you. Please.
Could I make a point of information?
Certainly.
Yeah, it wasn't actually the select board that closed the building. we came under a safety audit from a state agency. It was the Department of Labor. And actually, a couple of months ago, maybe 3 months ago, the chairwoman of the Joint Loss Maintenance Committee, I may have my acronym wrong there, Karen Rossi, myself, and Bill Booth, the code enforcement officer, met with the 2 inspectors from the Department of Labor who did the inspection, and they were the ones who told us that we absolutely had to bar entry into the building and ordered us to have the building posted, which I think that the select board did agree to. It was under a little bit of a threat because the Labor Department inspectors said that if we did not close the building, they would see if they could get an order to demolish issued at the state level and force us to do that. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Dave. I'll give you one more chance to have and then we'll listen to another person.
All right. I am listening. Thank you, Dave, for that. I find with the people that we have been talking to through the Heritage Commission that your assessment is much more bleak than ours as far as having to have a new foundation, having to have all of the things that you're talking about. That's true of any building we put up. And so I don't think it's time to kill the parish house before we have reached a stage in the town where we can positively go into studies on what can be and should be done about it. It is closed. There's no one in it. It is not a hazard to anyone.
Thank you, Tricia.
Jen Messiter, Wadley Falls Road. I just want to correct a typo because I'm a tech writer and that's what I do. So to allow the Lee Heritage Commission and the town of Lee sufficient time to, I think we have an extra 2 in there that we should remove. That's it.
Lee sufficient time to explore its options. So, Select Board, will we accept this as a typo at this time? Or should we have an amendment?
We're trying to make sure we know the rules around a petition article, because it's not written by us. So.
If it is considered to be a typo, I can rule it as a typo and we can strike it without voting as an amendment. But I just wanted to make sure. Okay, which one of those 2s do you want to get rid of?
The one after Town of Lee. Town of Lee, sufficient time. That too.
Can you say that again, please?
The first one. Town of Lee, sufficient time.
Town of Lee, sufficient time.
To explore.
Okay, I'm making the decision to strike as a clerical error that word "to" after the Town of Lee, and we'll move forward as a clerical error. Thank you. Did you get that? To strike that word "to"? Ah.
So the question is it a typo, or is this how it was submitted?
Do we have the original petition?
I do not have the original petition with me.
Was it submitted with the extra 2? Whose mistake?
All right. I stand corrected. The town clerk advises that as a petition article, I was asking the select board if they authorized that as a clerical error, but we can't do it if it's a petition article. We have to present it the way the petition was presented. What's that?
The meetings could change that if it doesn't change the purpose, couldn't they?
Certainly. So we'll address it as an amendment. Could I have an amendment, please, in that form? And could we scribble it on a piece of paper? And could we hand it forward? And is there a second to that amendment? Okay, we have a second. Thank you for doing that. Got ahead of myself. I thought it was, forgot it was a petition article. Did you have a comment that is unrelated to that amendment?
I have a question that's unrelated to that amendment.
Okay, well, why don't you address that question while we're doing this?
Okay, Eric Johnson, 43 Demerit Avenue. So the petition warrant article is asking for sufficient time to explore options. I'm curious as to why the previous 5 years was insufficient and why we're asking for another 5 as opposed to 1 or maybe 2.
Okay, we have a question. Could we have a responder from the Heritage Commission? Sorry, Patricia. So the question was, we've had 5 years already. What happens in the next 5 years?
What happens in the next 5 years? When you go for grants, when you go for things that we're asking for, you have to have something that you deal with. And we haven't had that. It isn't time yet for the things that the parish house would be used for. We're exploring different things. I know there are many people in town that would like to have some type of a rec building or a senior center or a place for kids to play whatever, to hold small group dances, to whatever people do now, yoga. There's an interest in doing that. In order to tie that to a grant for the parish house, we have to have more than we have right now. We have to have a presentation, and the town is not ready for that presentation to a grant person, grantor. So we are thinking that if the building is still there, we still have it as a bargaining chip when we get to this stage. If the building is gone, we no longer have it as a bargaining chip.
Thank you, Tricia. Is that helpful? Okay. Thank you. I would like to, before we take the next speaker, to dispatch the motion to amend petition Article 21 that has been made and seconded. Would anyone like to hear the rereading of the wording before they vote on this amendment? Everybody looks like they're comfortable with what we're doing here, to remove the word "to" after the word "Lee" in petition Article 21. So all of those in favor of the amendment to petition Article 21, please raise your voter card. Thank you. All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your voter card. The amendment passes. Petition Article 21 is reworded. Mr. Gazowski.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Paul Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. We've been at the town center project forever, and we certainly have deliberated and debated and haven't accomplished very much with it, and there's always something in the way or something that basically interferes with the ability to get things done. When it comes to historic buildings, I, for one, side with our town hall, which is also on the historic registry. And in a climate where the town has to choose what grants to pursue and what monies to allocate, I support our town hall, the old town hall. And some work has been done on the old town hall, and currently it is being used and be repurposed, but more work needs to be done. So I'm with that. I'm also with a new municipal office building, which will require a major municipal investment, and which is being planned. I'm not with the arrangement with the Daly building, and I've spoken to that before. So in a situation where basically you have to make choices, my choices are to pursue a new municipal office building, allocate grant efforts and resources to the old town hall, and finish our library. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this time spent in discussion here will help us on the next article. Thank you.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. First, there has been a historical building assessment done of the parish house. There's also been one done of the town hall. There's also been a hazardous materials assessment done for both of those buildings. For the parish house, there is one place that has asbestos, and that is in the sealant that was applied on the little roof that's over the front door. There's a second place that may have asbestos. It's in sealant around the chimney up on the roof. That was not assessed because the assessment was done in the winter, and the person could not climb on the snowy roof. The assessment that's done has numbers in it. It details the condition of the building. I agree with the people that have talked about the need for preserving our town hall, but the town hall is not likely to receive grants, at least not much, because when grantors look at potential projects, they look at how important is their money to the project. The town of Lee is not going to bulldoze the town hall. The grantors know that the town of Lee is going to save the town hall, but the town of Lee is not likely to save the parish house, and therefore grantors are very likely, we've been told, to provide close to matching, if not full matching funds for that building. I don't like making decisions without having numbers in front of me. And so far, all the discussion has been without numbers, other than a cost for demolishing. So my opinion is that demolishing the parish house is premature because we do not have a full plan for the town center.
Thank you, John.
Dave Cedarholm, Fox Garrison Road. I wanted to add a couple of things. One is that time is money, and we have waited already 4 years to come up with a decision, and in that 4 years, the cost of materials and the cost of labor has skyrocketed, and there's no sign in that leveling off or decreasing. So to say that mothballing this whole idea is not going to cost the town anything, I think is completely incorrect. Every year that we wait to do something means it will either cost more to renovate this building, or it will cost more to demolish the building. And when we talk about grants, I think hanging the ability to obtain a grant out there as a reason to preserve is a really shallow comment. I haven't seen any indication of any kind of grant either way. So either way, this is going to cost the townspeople money to fix it or repair it. And I love the idea of a community center. I think it'd be great for the kids in the town to have a community center. But trying to create a community center space in this tired old building is probably not what the kids or the parents who would want a community center would be interested in. It would cost more, in my opinion, to actually try to create a community center space in this tired old building than actually start from scratch. So if we're talking about the community center as a purpose, then let's focus on that. There have been 4 years to pull costs together, and I'm really excited to hear that there have been some assessments made. It would be great to see those. So the Select Board's office does not have those assessments. I've been trying to investigate this for the past month, and the Select Board's office has nothing. They have nothing to offer. So please, who's ever got these material assessments or hazardous materials assessments, please provide them to the select board so that we can create a library of information about this building. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Hi, Matt Ristica, 59 Turtle Pond Road. Clearly a lot of strong feelings about this issue. As I said before, I'm new to town. It seems to me like people are hesitant in the main to get rid of a historic building, and then people are also concerned about cost. I do look at the past 4 years of inaction and wonder like why we can't get our act together. Seems to me like the thing that's needed right now is to, if truly there is grant money available, you know, I don't think the town would look a gift horse in the mouth on this issue, but it seems like what we need to do is ask the Heritage Commission to make a plan. Seems like people can't agree. You know, if we can, I regret kind of missing the deadline for petitions because it'd be good to kind of ask, like, let's say in the next 18 months, let's have a plan so that we can say this is what we intend to do, which would give us a sense of how much grant money might be available, which would then allow us to make a more informed decision on the basis of cost, rather than just whining.
Thank you.
Chuck Cox, 36 Captain Smith Emerson Road. I think I support this article. I think I'm enough of a Yankee to know that we don't just throw things away, and I'm certainly very concerned when I look at what's happening with our recycling and stuff that, well, just the consuming that we do of all this stuff. When I go into this, the transfer station, I say, do we, as a town, create all this stuff in a week? And it's just, well, I know that doesn't sit me as a Yankee very well. And so I certainly see that we should be working as best as we can. I'm certainly very concerned as being on the Ag Commission and the Sustainability Committee and the Fair Committee that we work together as a community, and that we work certainly seeing that the building to be used eventually is going to need to be much more energy efficient. Basically, I think be keeping the shell of the building and redoing the whole thing. But my inclination is to keep the older buildings, and we own several older buildings, and it is certainly some things very much appreciated in those that we've had and inherited and want to keep going on. If you'll allow me, I will give a leaf story about Yankee.
Is it going to be a short one, Chuck, or one of your long ones?
It'll be short enough,
okay,
I think,
go ahead.
if you like. Okay. Yeah, there was a Texan in his big Cadillac driving around the thing. He saw a farmer sitting up on his front porch there, and he stopped and said, how big is your spread here? And he says, well, you look down and see that tree down there about 100 yards down the road, and you go back up into the woods. There's a big dead tree up there. We go from there and across it goes, and over across the brook and down and back up to the road here. And he says, and the Texan says, well, my spread I can get in my pickup truck and I can drive for 2 days and I'll still be on the property. And the farmer said, hey, yeah, I had a truck like that once. As a matter of fact, it's down behind the shed in the woods. I might take some use out of some of those parts someday.
Thank you, Chuck. We talk about the soul of this community, our parish house, other good things. We got to add. Go, please, Katrinka.
I enjoy hearing the Texas. I'm probably the only person here who's lived in both New Hampshire as a bona fide Yankee, born and raised, and in Texas for 25 years. That's a very popular story. Katrinka Palekia, Wiswall Road, sorry, and a library trustee. And as a library trustee, I've had firsthand experience dealing with the buildings in this town and what Lee chooses to do and not do with them. We tried to build a new community center several years ago. That community center, if we had built it would have cost less than what we'll probably end up spending refurbishing the library. It's always, especially with all the abatements that we're going to have to do. Refurbishing and renovating is invariably much more expensive than building new. And we put stuff off. I'm glad that we're finally starting to put money into town building funds. I mean, every year it was putting in $30,000. I mean, we don't treat our buildings well. We've applied for historic grants for our schoolhouse, which is on the register. We haven't gotten any yet. I remember one of them came out to look at it from the state historical, and she said, oh, that's the hobo shed. It's the first time I've seen it in person. Frankly, you know, when they voted to put that on the register, I was kind of embarrassed because the hobo shed looks terrible. It is not painted. It has the lovely little plaque on it, but we don't take care of our buildings. And as a result, I live in a 1750 house. I know about deferred maintenance and taking care of stuff. It's expensive. But, I love old things too, but we cannot, and I know this is not a new idea for some people here, we can't save every building. I toured the parish house when I think in advance of one of the last votes. I was appalled then, 4 or 5 years ago. I climbed all the way up to the top. I looked down that staircase and I said, oh my God, I could slide down. It was horrible. The floor was pulling away from the fireplaces and the foundation. I can't believe it's gotten any better in 5 years. Anyway, deferred maintenance is why we're asking for the $200,000 warrant article, which is a huge amount. We wouldn't have had to ask it, years ago, but I do recall hearing $800,000 bandied about with the parish house, and that figure is maybe 2 to 3 years old. So, and I don't think, is the parish house on the historic register? No, I didn't think so.
Historic register and 7 to 6.
Yeah, it was on the 7 to save, but. It is on the register? Okay, I didn't, yeah. So, but, I don't know, we just can't save everything, and Lee's attitudes towards this building is not encouraging. That's all.
Thank you. I'll take one more, I think, on this topic. Oh, we had a person standing, I'm sorry.
Gentlemen.
The intent here is to change the wording of the warrant article, if need be, and my thinking is that if this goes down and the second one tied to it gets voted for, that means as of this coming July, it can be demolished if the Board of Selectmen determines that, or does it need to go again in front of the voters for that specific amount of money to be demolished?
I don't believe it needs to come before the voters again.
Okay.
Especially if we got a grant to demolish it.
We have yeah, right.
We have a grant, did you say?
No, I'm saying, especially if we had a grant to demolish it.
If we had a grant to demolish it. The reason for my question is, logistically, can this be done before July of 2024? So if we change that to 2024 to give the Heritage Commission an extra year to come up with specific plans with costs, instead of possibilities, for the voters to vote on. Proposing that it go to 2024, if that is the case.
Yes, I'm afraid, as a petition warrant article, we wouldn't be able to change that date. I think that's pretty substantive to the article.
Okay.
I believe. That's my opinion on that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another shot in the next article. Okay, so if we could, please, I'll ask if there's any further discussion of Petition Article 21. Seeing no further discussion, I'll ask the town clerk to pass Petition Article 21 as amended to the official ballot and to be voted on March 14th. Do I hear any, a motion to restrict reconsideration of Petition Article 21? We have a motion to restrict reconsideration. Is there a second? Karen Rossi. And so all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 21, raise your voter cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion to restrict reconsideration is passed. Petition Article 22. Looks like Katrin is on this one.
Shall the town move forward with efforts to demolish or remove the parish house located at 15 Mass Road, given that the time allotted for consideration of preservation by vote of the town in 2019 and again in 2020 will expire July 1st, 2023? Majority vote required. I am not going to say a lot today. I just want to say a few things. One is our town has a lovely collection of older buildings. They have been neglected and ignored for a very long time. We have limited needs for them. We don't fit in many of them. We are doing the best we can. I love the idea of a community center. That's what the town hall is for. That has a beautiful big dance floor that can be converted into that. It's currently being used by the library, but the intention is to turn that into a lovely community center. It has a lot of space. One of the challenges of that building is it has a second floor. One thing that I think is really important personally is that when we have a space as a town that we hold together, that everyone has access to all parts of that space. So that means an elevator or some way to use that. I think it's important we start thinking about all of us and not just a few of us, and how to make sure we're able to share the things that we own together. So when I look at the parish house, I look at a house that has been used as a home. As a town, we don't need a house or a home. We've tried for 4 years, and I will tell you, I was part of the Historical Society. I very much wanted to save this parish house. I would love to do that. I have contacted every person I know in nonprofits. I have asked 1,000 questions. I can find no one that is willing to put the money into it, and I can't in good faith say to a taxpayer of Lee that you should do it because it's a nice old house. I really don't know how to do that. That's not what a town does. If you look at the ordinance of the select board, it is not our job to maintain things because they're nice and they're old. It's our job to provide services, emergency services, which, by the way, would be utilized dealing with an abandoned house that has no one in it. Our police department's going to have to check in on it and make sure it's safe, make sure no one's going inside. We have increased liability. It is even just standing there, it is not free. It's an extra hassle and challenge we have to deal with. So I absolutely 100% agree that we need to preserve things and care for them. And I am trying very hard to do that, but I just want us to realize we're doing that with the town library, the town hall, the annex building, the historical museum. They also want to save I'm forgetting the proper name, it's not called a hobo shed, the tramp room that's inside the shed, and then the parish house. These are all individual expenses. We have to say to the taxpayer, this is what you're going to get from it, and this is how we're going to do it. If somebody had an idea, which we've waited for 4 years for, that was willing to privately fund or find funds, great. That has not happened. I have looked everywhere I could. The other thing is when we have grants, they don't give grants over and over to one town. You very often will get a grant for the town, which our town hall desperately needs, our library desperately needs. To give those grants away, and now we have to pay more for our town hall and our library so that the parish house can stay, a building we do not need, it's even been stated, we don't have any purpose for. I'm very concerned about spending and how much money we have. I go through this budget, I've done this job for a few years now. We have to think about where we can cut things, what we don't need, so we can make sure we can afford the things we do. So with that, I'll sit down.
Thank you. Floor is open for discussion and questions about petition Article 22.
Matt Rustica, 59 Turtle Pond Road. Not to drag this out, but I'm gonna. I can't, I just want to just express my dismay, because it's like we could knock this thing down tomorrow, and the idea that we could then suddenly get our act together to build a whole new structure on that lot seems like vanishingly unlikely, right? So like what we're going to have is either a house that costs money and is falling down, or maybe not, depending on who you ask, or a lot that is like overgrown with weeds and, you know, and is just a general eyesore in the middle of town, right? So I guess I feel like that needs to be said, because, again, I just moved here in August. It seems like this has been going on for years. Like, I just want to lodge my dismay about that, because it ought to be that there's a plan, right? There's no plan to do anything with or about the parish house except knock it down. There's no plan to build anything there either. You know what I mean? So like, let's have a plan for real.
So there is actually,
Certainly.
there is actually a plan to build a town municipal building, and that parish house is located in proximity to the church, which means that there's no parking for it, there's no place to use it, there's actually, it's doesn't follow, and I don't know all the details of the rules, and maybe someone else can share these, but we'd have to change a lot of things to make it usable again. So it doesn't fall within the lines of how we could use it without using up more space, and that's where we'd like to have the municipal building have appropriate parking and make sure. So actually there is a plan. The reason that it's very interesting for us to demolish is so that we can get that space and start working on how we're going to utilize that better. If that's there, we can never, if we keep waiting for 5 years, then the whole time we're trying to build everything else, we have to hold this place for the water, the parking, the house, and it's too close to the church. Maybe you can speak to that.
Thank you.
Dave Cedarholm, I appreciate Matt's comment, and I would hope that if we demolish this building, we'll grade it flat, plant some grass, and then maybe our Public Works Department could actually cut the grass and maintain it until we figure out what to do with it.
Is that an amendment to this motion?
We don't need we don't need a bunch of weeds growing there.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah. Did you have a comment on that?
I did. Go ahead. Not specifically on that. And John,
Well, I'm going to let Andy talk and address that other comment, and then you're on, John.
Yeah, just with regard to plan, there is no specific plan on this warrant. I think the town is very likely to see a specific plan from the Select Board regarding a town office on next year's warrant. We did a significant amount of planning last year, and as soon as we get beyond deliberative session and the election, the Select Board is right back at the drawing board, refining a plan for development of a town office building at the town center.
Thank you, John.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. As the person who drew the first drawing of the parcel of land that we wanted to buy from the church, and then the person that drew the second parcel that we actually received and what would fit on there, I need to argue against your comment about space needs. I don't think you were on the board then. I know you weren't. But the parcel that we have is big enough for the biggest office building we might consider, plus doubling it, plus a 5,000 square foot addition to the library, plus parking for over 100 cars, and you haven't filled it quite up yet. So the parish house and the space it occupies has nothing to do with space needs in planning for the town center.
Thank you. One more shot for you, Dave.
All right, I was on the board when a lot of that conversation happened, and John is right. We didn't necessarily have a specific plan for the spot where the parish house currently sits, because the parish house is 10 inches away from the boundary line, and we need to create a buffer. So that space is important to create a buffer between whatever town center we have and our neighbor, which is a very good neighbor, the Congregational Church of Lee. So I'm all in favor of buffers.
Thank you. Floor is still open for debate and discussion on Petition Article 22. Hearing no further debate, I would ask that petition Article 22, I'd ask the town clerk to place that petition Article 22 on the official ballot to be voted on March 14th. And I would appreciate a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 22. It's moved and second. Thank you. We have a motion to restrict reconsideration of petition Article 22. All those in favor, please raise your voter cards. All those opposed, raise your voter cards. The motion passes to restrict reconsideration of petition Article 22. That brings us to the completion of our warrant articles to be discussed today. Are there any other pertinent business to these articles to come before this board, this meeting? Hearing none, I would hear a motion to recess this meeting until March 14th when the official ballot is open. Motion to recess this meeting. All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much. Just wanted to hear your voices out there just one more time. Before we pack up for today, though, I would remind you that the school board deliberative session is on Tuesday night, if you can make it. That's where the big ticket items are. I know it's a chore and it's tedious, but if we can get there, that's very helpful. But one more thing I want to do, this person right here, Linda Reinhold, for 18 years, she's been our town clerk. Her name's not going to go on the ballot to do this again for us, and so we're hoping that she can pass the torch to her assistant here. But I just would like to hear a round of applause and appreciation for Linda's 18 years. I'd also like to thank the Board of Selectmen. I'd like to thank the town administrators and the town clerks for their hard work up here. And thank you for coming out on this miserable day, and I'll bet it'll feel way better when you walk out there now. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.